So I didn't say my first word till I was 3 years old, you guys. Like, they thought something was wrong with me, so they took me to lots of specialists to be like, "Is she mentally challenged? Like, what's going on?" And no one would ever could find anything. So just so much things around, like, shaping my identity. That was kind of like my childhood and everything, and then I didn't get my period until I was 14, and we started dating when I was in grade 9, and then I got my period, and then my mom was pretty much like, "You're going on the pill right away." And so I didn't even have a full natural cycle, not one, before I went on the pill.
Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Today I am here with Lacey. We are missing Kira this week. She is probably camping somewhere in nature, being cooler than us, but that's okay. But today, Lacey and I are going to have a nice chat. We're going to get into her story, which we've heard sprinkles of it here and there, obviously, throughout the last 1.5 years of us recording. But we really want to just like dive into what brought her here and her story just in general. So we're really excited to dive into it. We want to kind of get into the weeds a little bit. Something Lacey and I always talk about is how just in the space that we're in, we tell our story so much and it's so robotic. So what we're really trying to do is just get into like more of the nitty gritty aside from the things that maybe you guys have heard us talk about time and time again. So, hey Lace, how's it going?
Hey, Jeb. Thanks for the awesome intro. It's going
So welcome.
good. But no, it's true that I feel like I have told my story so many times just through like in reels, in pictures, or in captions, or in carousels, or on my story on Instagram, or on this podcast that, or even on other people's podcasts that now when someone's like, "Oh, Lacey, tell us your story," that I'm like, "Okay, well, it all started when I was born." And then in the next like 10 minutes, I tell my whole entire life story and I just like rampage through it. And so I'm going to give myself a permission slip to get into the weeds, get into the rabbit holes a little bit. And if I don't get my whole entire story out today, then that is totally fine. And I kind of want to focus on the parts that I haven't told a lot because I think just through Instagram, a lot of people have kind of heard like from bodybuilding transitioning into like the functional health space. And I'm sure I will touch on lots of parts of that. But honestly, I want to go into my childhood, which is what we kind of did with both Kira and Jensen's story a little bit, because I find that that's really what excites me. Even when talking to our clients, I'm like, what were you like as a kid? Like, did you have any weird health symptoms? Because a lot of times when you are experiencing health issues, it wasn't like they just came out of nowhere, right? It is kind of like this lifelong compounding thing that based on your environment, your symptoms will start to arise at different times. But yeah, so where should I start? Well, to be completely honest, it did start when I was born.
I know, I was
So
going to say, I do feel like that part is very interesting about your story, especially because you know so much about it. Because even with
mhm.
me, like, I feel like all I've ever heard is like, my mom had good pregnancies and I like blah, blah, blah. So it's cool that you actually know. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that your mom is very aware of this stuff as well. And so that's interesting when she can like pass down that information, where I think a lot of parents wouldn't even, it wouldn't, like the kids say, clock to them. And so it's just cool that you actually know all of this. So, yeah, tell us about when you came into planet
The
Earth.
world. Yeah, I was actually thinking about this not too long ago because obviously I've been on this fertility journey for too fucking long and still no baby. And so I was thinking, I'm like, I've never really asked my mom if she like struggled to get pregnant. But then I thought about it. I was like, oh, she obviously didn't because Kira is my older sister and she is only 1.5 years older than me. And I never
That's
like I've thought
crazy.
about that in the past, but I was like, oh, she was literally like 5 months old when my mom got pregnant with me, which I've never really like had that resonate in my brain. And so now, knowing everything we know about having close pregnancies and what pregnancy and postpartum does to someone is it depletes them of minerals. And so having babies quickly back to back like that, my mom probably went into my pregnancy already depleted from Kira. Like Kira just wrecked my life from the get-go. I'm just kidding, Kira. We love you.
Yeah, Lacey's a middle
Um,
child, everybody.
I'm a middle child. And then my younger sister is 2.5 years younger than me. So I was about like 1 when my mom got pregnant with Marina. But when I was born, my mom actually ended up losing a lot of blood and had to get a blood transfusion right at our pregnancy or right when she had me. And then she ended up having allergic reaction to the blood that they gave her because they gave her the wrong type. So then they had to like take all of the blood out of her, and then they ended up just filling her with like water, because at that point I guess you can't do like another blood transfusion. And this is not like a medical advice in this story, so like don't quote me on this, people. But it was messed up. And then so I was separated from my mom, and my mom was dying, and my dad might hate me for telling this part of the story, but he was not the man he was today, and he actually like left my mom and me at the hospital, and he like went to my cousin's graduation party or something. And this was before they they kind of knew that my mom got really sick. And so you just have to like really go back, and this is why I love telling, like getting into the weeds with these types of stories, because it's like that was my first day on earth. My first week on earth is I become born and I'm born. And then my mom almost dies. We're ripped apart at the very beginning. She's almost dying. So there's all this stress. And my dad is like nowhere to be seen. So I'm just like this alone baby on
Oh
this
my
planet Earth,
gosh.
thinking that I killed my mom and it's my fault and she's going to die. And it really was a close call. Like there was so much blood. It was insane. But
this episode of The Wellness Effect is brought to you by Lifestyle You. If you're listening to this podcast and thinking, okay, this sounds like me, whether it's low energy, hormone imbalances, stubborn symptoms, or you just feel like you've tried everything, Lifestyle You is our root cause coaching program designed to help you actually connect the dots.
we use functional nutrition, personalized support, and functional lab testing to figure out why your body is doing what it's doing, instead of just guessing or slapping a band-aid on symptoms.
And because you're a listener of The Wellness Effect, when you use the code Wellness Effect, you'll receive a free functional lab when you join the program. If this episode is resonating with you, make sure to share it with a friend, subscribe to the podcast, and check out the show notes to learn more about Lifestyle You and how to apply.
I think it was something to do with her placenta, like ripped off. I can't even remember that part of the story. But anyways, that's traumatic, even though I had no idea what was, or I think I didn't have any idea, but I'm sure my body remembers. And my mom always tells my like early childhood as I was just a crier. I cried all of the time. I always had to be held. I just would not shut up ever. And in my first 2 years of life, I was always sick my whole entire childhood, but I'll get into that. But those first 2 years of life, I just wouldn't stop crying. And so they kept taking me to the doctor, and they're like, at that point, if you were just a crier and you went to the doctor, they pretty much just were like, you have an ear infection, and they'd give you antibiotics. So in my first 2 years of life, I did multiple rounds of antibiotics. And so again, I think that just kind of like set me up for this lifelong journey of having health issues. And then for the next like 5 to 10 years, I think because I was so young, I didn't know how to communicate how I felt. And so I would, like, my friend would be like, I have a stomach ache. And I'd be like, oh, that's what I have. I have stomach aches. And then they'd be like, oh, I have headaches. I'm like, oh, that's what I have. I have headaches. But I couldn't really communicate it. So I was always, they were like, she has this. She says it's this. She has this. And like always just in and out trying to figure out what it was. But eventually I got old enough and it was headaches that I would just experience all of the time. But I think as kind of like growing up, Kira was the typical like older child who ended up kind of like supporting us and raising us, and has a much different perspective of her childhood than me and my little sister do, which I think is very normal for the oldest to just have that. And it was actually something that Kira reflected back to me, because Kira and my mom are very, I would say, like emotional, and me and my younger sister, and they're like very type A, very organized, very like that. And then me and my younger sister are very type B, go with the flow. We always would joke like we don't have emotions, like more so kind of followed in my dad's footprints in
Mhm.
that sense. And Kira kind of said to me not long ago, and she's like, well, do you ever think about how maybe it was just because me and mom were always so emotional and so like, because they didn't really get along and there was a little bit of turmoil, that like me and Marina just learned like we're just being quiet and there's no room for our emotions in this because there's already so many emotions. And
Much
I was like, wow.
emotion.
So I just started shoving everything down, I think. And I just and that was the really start of it. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of think back to all of
That's
that and just how
crazy.
that isn't that
So
wild?
was it like for Kira and your guys' mom, like was that like from the time you were young, or was that more like into when you guys were teenagers, or just kind of your whole entire childhood?
No, I think it was honestly like our whole entire childhood. Like Marina was very, very quiet, very like shy, always had to be attached to my mom, but never. And I think I was maybe a little bit just like in the middle as the middle child. But no, it was always like Kira was the problem. And then me and Marina were just like in the background kind of thing. And
Interesting.
I always like to preface this because I think we know it, but like when I turned 20 or 25, before I really understood like trauma and things like that, I thought I had a picture perfect childhood. And so I never want to like paint my parents in a bad
I
way
know.
because they literally crushed it with the information they had, and they raised like 3 successful girls, and we all like each other, and we have a really close family bond and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it's just like, you learn as you go, and there wasn't the information back there as there is today. But I'm not comparing my childhood to someone who like really, there was no abuse, there was no anything. It was just like the typical,
No, it's
yeah,
just family dynamics, right?
family
And I think
dynamics.
like we're going to do the same thing with our family, and our kids are going to be on a podcast being like, Mom was a fucking nutcase.
Yes.
You
Oh,
know
but
what I
this is
mean?
yeah, literally. But something that was interesting that I maybe have mentioned it on the podcast, but I actually wet the bed until I was like 9 or 10 or even like 11 or 12, like way past the point of when kids should
Be
wet the
wetting the
bed. So
bed.
I wore pull-ups till I was like 10 years old at night. And eventually my parents kind of like tricked me, and they said that my dad was getting a sleep specialist over to help with his snoring. And they're like, oh, well, you should just talk to him, Lacey, because like, maybe he can help you with wetting the bed. And like, so there's like this big, but it was all for me. Now I know that, but I didn't know that at the time. And so I
Wow,
had to
that's
tell
like
them,
interesting they did it like that.
yeah, I know. Cause I don't know if they maybe thought, and
They
maybe I
felt
should ask
bad.
them, but that was my, like, I can remember that conversation at the table, and I had to like walk down. But I just think too, one, that's not normal, right? Like if your kid is wetting the bed, I believe, and I've not done a lot of research into like the root cause of wetting the bed, but I just think that doesn't make sense that I'm zonked out to the point where I do not wake up to go pee.
Yeah.
And so what they did to cure me of that was I would sleep on this metal mat that was like this big square that would go like under my butt. And then when I would pee, the second it would get wet, it was this huge alarm, like, and I would be like, whoa, like jerk out of bed. And
What?
after, yeah. And I should ask my mom how long I did that for,
There
but
was
that's
an
what would happen.
alarm?
It was,
I thought you
and
were
it
just going to
wasn't,
say it was cold on my butt, so I like woke up.
no, it was this big black box, and it was like a fucking siren. Like no alarm clock even comes close to this loud. Like it was a siren. I can remember it. And I had to switch this big silver thing to like switch it off. But over a couple months or however long it was, eventually you train your body to kind of like learn that signal of you're about to go pee. And I remember I'd always have like this reoccurring dream that I'd be going into the bathroom and Lindsay Lohan would be there. And that meant that I was going to pee. And eventually I like could train my brain to be like, oh, you're in the bathroom and Lindsay Lohan is here. And this means you need to wake up because you're about to pee your pants. And then I'd like wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I have to go pee. Anyways,
That is
now
fascinating.
isn't that so fascinating? But I just think to that, I'm like, my poor nervous system, like getting waken up in the middle of the night by a fucking crazy alarm thing every single day for months, that it like, that's like, I don't know. I just feel like that for my nervous system
Yeah.
was probably not good. And I think about that now because I've gone down lots of rabbit holes because I still always wake up, sometimes twice, to go pee in the middle of the night. And I've done so many things with like my blood sugar and my liver because we know it's linked to that if you like
And
are
like
waking up between
cortisol.
and cortisol like between 2 to 4 a.m. It's like there's so many root causes to that it's not normal. And so I've gone down and I've experimented like, hey, if I eat this much during the day and then I eat this before bed with like the fat, and because there's lots of tactics that I won't get into, but nothing has ever changed. And I've gone through so many
Yeah.
different phases of my healing journey and I've always woken up. But I just honestly think now that as soon as my body senses that I have to pee, I'm just like all alarms are off and I just like wake up and I don't actually think mine is linked to my blood sugar or my cortisol or my liver. But that's just
And
like
have you
something
brought that up? Because that is so I've
isn't that
always wondered that with you because you always wake up to pee, and it's one of those
always?
things where that should be, like, not like an immediate switch, but that's something that will change even a little bit with, like, lifestyle, but wow, that is crazy.
Does doesn't that make so much sense though? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I think that it and even on that sense, I'm always someone also hyper aware. Like I'll sometimes like push on my bottom stomach to like see if I have to go pee because I'm just like so aware of like, do I have to go pee? I don't know, it's weird, but
And, like, scared if it will happen and, like
yeah. And
mm,
so I think that just kind of set myself up on a little bit of a rocky nervous system. And
you've
then
got a depleted gut.
depleted gut from antibiotics. Okay, and then this is the other weird thing that happened in my childhood about me. And I want to talk about my headaches too cuz that was another journey. But I would get yeast infections all of the time and I never told anyone. And I just kind of had this like it was maybe not even 5, maybe 3 years ago where I was like, "Oh, that is what that was," because to be honest, since I was 10 or however old I was, I can't remember, but I remember we were still like in my childhood house, which I think we left when I was like 11 or 12, but I have never had one in my adult life. So it never was like top of mind, but then I think just like working with clients and hearing stories about and I was like, "Oh, I think that's what I used to get when I was a kid," but I was just so embarrassed, I guess, to like tell my mom that
Mhm.
my vagina was on fire and itching like crazy that I just never did. And I would just literally raw dogged yeast infections for like 10 years, which is just like and I can't remember how long it was and everything kind of blurs together, right? So I don't know. But for someone who doesn't remember like a ton of their childhood, I remember that. And I remember like trying to like go through my mom's bathroom and like find different creams and like it would just be the
Aw.
worst. I know, isn't that so sad? So,
Yes.
if you have a young daughter, maybe just ask her
And
if
they're
she's
itching
dealing
their
with it, if
crotch.
anything's going on down there. But
That's
I think
crazy.
again too, right? Like now that we know what we know, yeast infections are not normal. That stems from gut health, yeast overgrowth, all of that. And so that again, I think was shaped based on my traumatic birth, my first 2 years of life being on multiple rounds of antibiotics, and then
Your mom being depleted when she had you, which means you're
yeah.
depleted.
And so that was another weird thing that now looking back, I'm like, yeah, it's no wonder I got an autoimmune disease. I was not set up on a foundation of
Well, and I
success,
think
that's for sure.
yeah, one thing that's interesting too about your story that I think is a little bit different, and I haven't listened to yours and Kira's episode yet, but even like Kira's too, is your symptoms when you were a kid showed up very like physical, whereas
Mhm.
on the other side, a lot of the times those symptoms will show up more like mentally and like being like having a hard time paying attention or being erratic or whatever it might be. So that's just
Yes.
interesting.
Which is funny because that is a huge part of Kira's story. It manifested more as like anxiety. And she didn't even know it was an
Mhm.
anxiety at that time. But yeah, that is interesting that mine was always very physical. Now, I will say when I like, it's always funny because I get in my head when I say I have ADHD because I am self diagnosed. I've never been diagnosed, but like at this point, there's no way that I'm not. So I do fully believe that I'm not throwing that term around lightly. I really am convinced. But that was another weird thing about my childhood is the ADHD aspect of it, where I would be so obsessed with computer games. If like I finally convinced my parents to buy me a Game Boy, like I was always locked in and I was like I was competitive in that sense too, but I was that's how my brain worked. Like I liked hyper focused or not. And
Mhm.
I never really struggled in school. I never applied myself and I like very easily got B's, I would say, or even like C pluses was kind of like the lowest grade we were allowed to get in our household. So I kind of like I never tried, never applied myself. I probably could have easily got A's if I did, but again, I just was
Mhm.
my brain was not. But that's another thing, right? Like that isn't normal, I don't think, and I do believe there's a slight genetic part to ADHD, but I think a lot of it can and does
Be
stem from
lifestyle.
lifestyle. And I think, again, everything was just like, and that's the other interesting thing is everything was always so physical for me that even a lot of Kira's story was like she had that anxiety. So she turned to like binge drinking and blacking out every weekend. And that was like a very normal thing where we grew up. We grew up in a small town. That's all that it was like just our age group. We're kind of like older millennials. We would just, everyone would binge drink. But when I got to the point of where me and my friends would start drinking around like 13 or 14 years old, I could never ever drink like my friends could, and my body just always rejected it, and I never really understood, and especially at that age, I just wanted to fit in and be cool with my friends, so I would pretend to drink, and like my whole entire life, I would be that friend. I would go to the bathroom, I would dump out my drink, and I would pretend to be drinking, and I would like fake pretend to be drunk, like my whole entire high school, my whole university, like I could not physically drink more than 3 drinks, and I just have no other way to explain it, but it's like as soon as I get 3 drinks in, my body is just like, "You are not drinking anymore," and I can't even physically make myself, so I've never gotten to the point of being, like,
Blacking
blackout
out.
because I've just which I feel like we say, like, so nonchalantly, and people are like, "That's kind of like, not many
That's
people
kind of
blacked out," but
that's kinda crazy.
but I'm
Me, you, and
like
Kira, like, blacking out.
but so, like, all of my friends would every single weekend, and that was
Yeah,
just so
that's
normal our
small
whole
town
entire
Alberta.
life, all the way up until we were 25 or 27, or still my friends are still blacking out, like, it
Mhm.
but that was never me because I think, again, just understanding my health, that my body and my liver was so congested that it literally couldn't handle booze, which is just
Yeah.
interesting, and the other thing that's linked to that is I always had dark circles under my eyes, and my mom always said, like, "As a baby, you always had dark circles." I have this one, like, core memory of one of my good friends' mom being like, "Are you tired? Your eyes are always so dark," and that, like, stuck with me my whole entire life, and that's also linked to liver congestion, you know what I mean? And so I think there's
Mm.
things that we just, like, normalize, but that dark under eye is not normal. It's not normal. And so, yeah, there's just like so many weird things that just set myself up, my adult life, for such a fucking
That
gong
is
show of
crazy,
crazy.
and even just, like, hearing you, like, recite all the symptoms that you had when you were young, I'm like, I don't know if I could do that. I would get, like, crazy stomach pain, illness, sicknesses every single like, once a year, but other than that, like, I can't remember
No, because
physical
it,
symptoms as a kid, you know what I mean? So that's why it's so
yeah,
interesting hearing you, like, recite everything.
I know. And I honestly think it's just because those first 2 years of life and my birth and my mom, like 5 months postpartum, getting pregnant again. I just think it was like it started literally the day I entered the world, that by the time I was 6, it was manifesting into physical symptoms. Like it just happened that quick. And then like my headaches is a whole nother
Right.
layer on this because once I could finally kind of communicate and they learned, oh, I was getting headaches. I was getting headaches like once a week. And I always use the word headaches. I don't use the word migraines, but I think after what I learned now, I think they actually are migraines, but I just never related to people that had migraines because my headaches just they don't change, and it doesn't matter if I'm talking on the phone or looking at a screen or in a dark room or a light room. Like there's nothing that brings me any relief, and there's nothing that even makes it more intense. It's just constant steady tension, and I would just take T3s. That's what my thing was. I would just was prescribed T3s, and I would just take T3s. So I was taking like 4 to for years, and thank God that my mom is just at that point, like now she's super into functional health. She was just always a little bit ahead of the curve, and she always
Yeah.
it never sat well with her, and she's just like, why? Like always would ask these. So I think I was about 10 or 11 when we started to kind of be like, "Okay, Lacey, you can't just take T3s." And then the T3s didn't work either. Like nothing would change anything. It's just like I might be able to kick it in the bud like a little earlier if I took these
Mhm.
T3s, but so I was missing school, and then we started kind of going down these other rabbit holes, and I remember I went and got a it was an allergy test. I'm so curious as to what it actually was because I don't remember, but I got a finger poke, and it said that I had like a high reaction to sugar, which it doesn't really make sense to me now. Like, how would you test someone for sugar and everything is sugar? But anyways, they said, oh, you have a
Mhm.
high reaction to sugar. So like you need to go on this super strict sugar-free diet. And so I remember I had to like I could only eat goat dairy. I would have like plain oatmeal and berries for breakfast. And it was just like a very clean, literally no sugar diet. So I don't even know what else I would eat, but I could eat carbs, right? Like I just feel like there was
Mhm.
something that wasn't really right there. But
But that was just, like, healthy eating back then too, like a bowl of oatmeal for breakfast with
oh, and I
berries.
just remember like now I would like love a bowl of oatmeal, but coming from someone who at that point, like I think I my even my hunger cue, everything was messed up because I think I had like candida overgrowth
Yeah.
probably from like the yeast infections. And so I think that's probably why I had that high sensitivity to sugar. And for those that don't know, candida is what yeast is, which can cause yeast infections, and candida feeds off sugar. So that kind of like makes sense. So I go on this diet and I don't think I got any relief. Oh no, I did. That's what helped it. So that was the final thing we did, but we would try all these different avenues. And I remember one thing was the chiropractor. And so they're like, oh, you're like slightly out of balance. Like your left is slightly higher than your right side or something like that. So I'd go get like
Mhm.
cracked and realigned. And then we'd drive down island, see these like specialist chiropractor. And I remember one time the chiropractor literally like got on top of me and like cracked my nose down. And it like, and my mom was sitting there, right? And like, I just start like crying, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "This hurts so fucking bad." Like, it
Oh.
was so painful. And I can remember that, like, remember getting cracked. And that did nothing. And we tried all these different things. And then, yeah, finally we got tested and I went on this low sugar diet. And I think that kind of, it really helped. And I didn't have a headache, but I had to eat really low sugar for, I mean, forever after that point, pretty much. Like I never really kind of
Yeah,
went back to
legit.
like normal eating. But I think too, like a good part of this story is just like how much of my core childhood memories is revolved around me being the crier, being sick, having headaches. Like, so it just formed like such a strong identity that like something is wrong with me. And
Hmm.
I, and I think that kind of just, I mean, I've really tried to like take a foot back in the last 3 years of like, what else can I fix? What else can I fix? Which I think even you relate to this, Jeb, of like when now we're at these parts of our journey where it's like, you have to cut out gluten. I'm like, I don't want to because like I'm so sick of like, what else can I do? You know what I mean? So there's like there's resistant to like taking the next step in even like our fertility journey because I'm just like really gave myself permission of like, you're just okay,
You're
just the way
good.
you are, Lacey. You are
Yeah,
good.
like, you don't need to be better.
No.
That's so interesting, though, that that's where you think that it ties from, right? And that makes so much sense because, like you said, your whole life, it's like, "I'm sick, I need to fix myself," and then that shows up
Well,
in
and it
different
was, and this
ways.
is just another like nuance point that I've reflected on, but my mom, when she had me, was like part of a study and they were kind of studying like moms who smoked versus moms who didn't smoke. And my mom didn't smoke. And so, like, for the first like 6 years, every year we would have to go to the hospital and they'd like run these tests. And then my sisters and everyone would make fun of me and they'd call me research.
Lacey has
So
so much lore.
so much more. And so I think even that was like traumatizing to me of like, oh, they're researching me because something's wrong. And then something else that was weird that happened with me, which even comes back to what Kira kind of reflected back of like, do you ever think that you and Marina just felt like unsafe to express emotions because me and mom were so emotional? But I didn't talk. I didn't say my first word until I was 3 years old. And it was ball. So
What?
yeah, so I didn't say my first word till I was 3 years old, you guys, like, picture that. So they thought something was wrong with me, so they took me to lots of specialists to be like, "Is she mentally challenged? Like, what's going on?" And no one would ever could find anything, but that was also just, like, in my first 3 years of life, like, "What's wrong with Lacey?" I'm like, "I don't wanna talk, okay? Leave me alone."
Just
Which
quiet.
which
You
is
guys are
just
too loud.
yeah, like, "You're too loud. I'm sick.
That's
Someone pay attention to me." But yeah,
crazy.
so just so much things around, like, shaping my identity that yeah, so that was kind of like my childhood and everything, and then I didn't get my period until I was 14, and again, we grew up in a small town where it was very normal for girls to date older boys. Looking back, this is a little bit weird, but I was in grade 9 and my boyfriend was in grade 12. And so we started dating when I was in grade 9, and then I got my period, and then my mom was pretty much like, "You're going on the pill right away." And so I didn't even have a full natural cycle, not one, before I went on the pill. And that obviously was the start of the rest of my life, that decision.
Like, this is a weird comparison. They don't even recommend that for dogs. Like, it's like dogs need to have a full
I know.
cycle before you.
And I really hope that has changed now, that maybe doctors are slightly more cautious when recommending the pill to new women, women who have just crossed over into
Yeah.
womanhood. But I don't know, right? Like, I don't know if they just still do that, but and
I'm
I
sure
also
newer
don't.
doctors do.
Yeah. And also, I do not blame my mom. And I think the part of my story she has the most regret around is like that decision, because not giving your body the opportunity to fully get used to cycling, like that really ended up shaping the next 20 years of my life. And I actually got my first period when I was 14. I never had a regular period until I was 29 years old. So that's like, and surprise,
Oh, that gives me
surprise, I'm
chills.
now on a 16-month fertility journey. And so, right, like you can only just imagine. And so I was on the pill for the 4 years of high school, and everything was fine. But that is kind of when I started gaining weight. And I was never, it was hard because growing in high school, both my like closest friends had the most insane body, like straight stomach, big like nice legs, big juicy bums, like crazy bodies. Like even now they still both have crazy bodies. But so I was always kind of like, but I was, a lot of girls were like, Lacey has a great body. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm. It's all
I really
relative.
don't want to like paint this picture that I was like fat or uncomfortable. And I don't even really remember ever struggling with my body image in high school, but my mom would say like, "Well, why aren't I skinny like Dara and Kylie," which are like my friends. Shout out you guys. But I don't really remember having that, but it is when I got like really big boobs, and I just kind of gained maybe like 10 or 20 pounds. But I think too that was like when no one else had boobs, so like all the guys really liked me, and like so I
Yeah.
don't remember internaling it as a negative thing, but it is when I just started to put on weight. And now just understanding my genetics and my sisters and my family, like we aren't really people that carry, like everyone else was very very small, so it was just weird that Lacey had like these huge boobs and was like kind of like 10 pounds
Super
or 15 pounds
curvy.
overweight, yeah, in high
Not
school.
super curvy, but curvy.
No, not super curvy, but yeah, I was like a little bit bigger.
Mhm.
And then I went down to university, and it's so funny looking back at my story too, because there's so many decisions that just kind of happened by fluke that I'm just like so fucking grateful ended up happening. One, which I just think is like the whole like universe just works for you. My one thing was in like grade 7, you have to get like a vaccine of some sort. And I don't know what it was, but I just like somehow was so scared of needles that I just like stood in line and like somehow tricked my teacher into thinking they thought I got it. And I even wore like a fake band-aid on my arm, and like I never ended up getting
So
it.
funny.
And not that I want to go down like the vaccine rabbit hole, but I also honestly think if I would have got that vaccine, that it would have like triggered even more health issues in me. And
Especially
then
with, like, the
this
autoimmune and, like, that was
That's what I mean.
lingering. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just like, what are like that's just so interesting that I just like got my way out of that. And then
Mhm.
the second thing was when I graduated high school and I went down into university, my ADHD brain, even though I went on and I had another boyfriend right away, that I never refilled my birth control prescription. I like never bothered to go to the doctor and get it filled and blah blah blah. And thank fucking God. I mean, obviously, I just cold turkey went off of it, no idea, first year university. And that really started so much hormonal chaos. But I was like, thank God I wasn't just another one person that stayed on it for 10 or 15 years, because I can't imagine where I would be with that. Cause I'm like, at least I was only on the pill for 4 years, even though it was like my first 4 years of being
Yeah.
hormonally active. But I was like, that's such a positive in the grand scheme of things that I did get off of it when I got off of it. But now looking
Wait,
back at,
What was your, like, personality like? Like, were you just not scared of getting pregnant, or were you like, "I don't really
I
care,"
don't
or did
think
you start to know you can't get pregnant, like, unless you're ovulating?
Well, so that was the thing when I came off. I was very type B, so I think that I
Yeah.
just thought nothing would happen, but when I got off of it, only would get my cycle every 4 months. And so that is when I kept saying, "I can't get pregnant. I can't." And then that developed this long life belief that I couldn't get pregnant, which I'm like, "Fucking Christ, Lacey." So, but no, I don't think I was, like, worried, and I do remember saying, like, "I can get pregnant, it's fine," and I never worried about my cycle only coming every 4 months because when it came, it was super, super fucking painful, and I would be out for
Mhm.
3 days, and I just, like, absolutely hated it, and so when I went to the doctor and he told me, like, "You're one of the lucky ones, you ovulate with the seasons, it's totally normal," and I was like, "Sick, I ovulate with the seasons, I'm special, you guys," and she's just, like, such a motherfuckers, like, but
That's crazy. And
it's
once again,
just
you just
so
believe that when you're young and you're like, "Nice, like, I ovulate with the
mm,
seasons, like, that's
yeah, and so I'm
great."
like, "Oh, I can't get pregnant, like, I'm fine," and I think too, just looking back to that season of my life, I was in such a toxic relationship. I was, like, so low confidence in myself, like, me and one of my good friends who's actually now a coach for Lifestyle U, Brittany, we would just be on, like, all these random diets, like, we would eat 0 fat, and I was really gaining weight, and we were just both in these, like, super toxic relationships that now I just look back and I'm like, I just think that that was, like, a hormonal chaos, and
Yeah.
I think it really shaped my, like, 4 years of university and just who I was and, like, who I attracted into my life that it just, like, is so sad to look back on, but I went through probably, like, 2 or 3 years where I was 20 pounds overweight, and I always remember I was super bloated because it was like my party trick, which I've told this story, to just look 6 months pregnant. Like every guy I dated, we like posted the April Fool's picture of my stomach out on April Fool's. Like, hey, this is also probably karma now that I'm experiencing of all the times I tricked everyone.
I know.
So but I don't remember my other symptoms besides being mentally crazy and being in toxic relationships, and then also, like, having no control over my emotions, and then also just, like, gaining weight. So, it's so interesting.
Okay, do you wanna talk about the diet pills that you were on and
Oh, yeah. I was like, "Okay, where do I go next?" So, gained all this weight, and then my university boyfriend that I was dating at the time, we did start going to the gym because I remember my cousin was getting married in Vegas, and that is the infamous starter bikini pic that I took that has been shared so many times now, where I'm in this green room and I remember I stepped on the scale and I want to say I was 160. And like prior to that, I was kind of always 140, like my all throughout high school. And I was like, holy shit. And so I took that picture as like my starting picture and I was like, I gotta lose weight for Vegas. Like I'm going to my cousin's wedding and like blah, blah, blah. And so we started going to the gym. And I remember we would smoke so much weed and then we would take NO Explode, which is like this crazy, it's like 400 milligrams of caffeine. It's like the most intense fucking pre workout that was on the market back then. And we would go to the gym at 11 o'clock at night because I was like, we were both too nervous to go when other people would be there. So we got access to like this 24-hour gym. We would just be like so baked. And then we would take like this huge shot of pre-workout and then we just go work and I have no idea how I was sleeping, but again, that's just like the state of my nervous system. It was a mess. And obviously nothing worked, nothing, didn't lose any weight. And I can also remember in this time that every morning I would be so nauseous and so sick. And I literally could not even think about eating a granola bar until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And that now I know was my blood sugar because, again, I smoked a lot of weed. And so we would munch out every night and I would just have we just had no control. We just didn't know, right? So we'd eat
Yeah.
like $5 worth of those like 5-cent candies and we would just totally munch out every single night and
It's
then
like
wake
you're
up.
working out late and then yeah.
It's just a mess. But I remember my mom's like, you have to eat. And I'm like, Mom, you don't get it. Like, even the thought of a granola bar, it makes me want to puke. So when people say like, I'm just not hungry in the morning, I'm like, I get it. Trust me, I get it. But you
Mhm.
got to start, because that just starts such a negative, that binge and restrict, where I wasn't even restricting. I just physically could not eat. But then by 5 o'clock, I was starving because I didn't eat all day. And then the worse it gets and the more nauseous you are, it kind of just like almost enforces the binge and restrict cycle, even though I never was like, oh, I have a binge eating disorder. It was
Yeah.
just like, I smoke a lot of weed, I eat at night, we munch out, and this is just my life, right? And
Yeah.
so that was another thing. But then my boyfriend came across these fat loss pills on the internet. And he's like, "Oh, we should do these fat loss pills." And I don't even think he did them with me, but I was
And,
like,
like, the
"I'm in."
internet at the time was, like, the wild,
Yeah, like
wild west.
this is like 2010, not to
Christ.
age myself. So they're now banned because multiple people had like kidney failure and all of this stuff, but I don't even know what was in them. And I wish I remember what they were called, because I would just love to look them up. But I remember just, I would always feel so thirsty. I would not be hungry at all. And I felt like I was running a million miles a minute. Like, I'm like, it was speed for sure or something. But I've like never felt so good in my life. And I'm just like riding this high. I dropped like 40 pounds. It did take time. Like, it wasn't like a, over
Overnight.
overnight thing, and I did make a lot of changes to my lifestyle for sure, but it was there, that was not happening without those pills, because I just remember I would just slam water like all day. I was so thirsty and like could not quench it. And
Oh my
I
god,
would
your kidneys, I'm just like
my poor poor body has been through so much. I'm just like,
and your
oh my
liver, like,
god.
I'm just like
I know, it's crazy. And so I would do a bottle, I'd lose like 20 pounds, and then I'd come off of it, and I'd kind of gain like 10 pounds back. And then I do another bottle. And I want to say I did that at least 4 times. And then after that, I would just kind of always lose and gain the same 10 pounds, but I kept like a much tighter scale on it. And I think more so that was when I started that like no fat and like trying different
Mhm.
diets and stuff like that. But I think in the first 2 years of university, I was just like, fat loss pills, let's do it. And so, yeah, that was pretty much my university experience. And I did fall in love with the gym during that time. And I just think it was like I've always been very, very competitive. We didn't really touch on this, but in high school, I played like absolutely every single sport you could imagine. I always was super active. I loved it. I went to university because I wanted to be a PE teacher. So I was taking like sport health and physical education. So we had a lot of like strength training classes where we had to learn how to teach strength training, and then how we also
Mhm.
had to like do it ourselves. And like some of my classes were like learning how to teach, like it was like a gym teacher. It was the best ever. But
So much fun.
I did like learn a lot, and I was like really good friends with like the football boys, and so we'd all go to the gym together. And I would like just I remember we would do like lat pull downs, squats, and deadlifts, and that was like it. And we would just like try to lift as heavy as we possibly could. And I was doing like 2 plates aside on deadlifts and squats in like third year university. And
That's crazy.
that was way before like having a big butt was cool. Like nothing was cool. It was just like I just loved going to the gym. And I remember one of my good friends in my last year university, she did her first prep for a bodybuilding show. I don't think she actually ever like finished it through, but that was like the first like bodybuilding introduction that I got. And I was like, oh, that's like cool. I would love to do that, because also she was fucking lean, and I like had this body that I like always envisioned that I wanted and I wanted to look like, because I wanted to be like, I never was like, oh, I want to be skinny, tiny, small. I like always did want to have kind of be strong and athletic,
Mhm.
which is, thank God, a trait I had. um, but I was like, I want to do that. And then I just happened to like graduate and then not go down the teaching route like I thought. And I moved to Alberta where my sisters were at the time. And then I met my first bodybuilder and like started dating him. And then I kind of started the next 7-year journey of my life, which was bodybuilding.
Yeah, and what symptoms did you have during that time, and, like, were you just not paying attention to them because you were now lean and, like, you're like, "Wow, I can change my body, and I feel good, and I look a certain way. People wanna look like me," but what was going on where it's like I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, that's probably when you looked the healthiest, but I assume you didn't feel the healthiest.
I think at that point, I was really struggling with when I was first getting into bodybuilding. because at first I just like, okay, I'm going to start eating like a bodybuilder. So I started tracking my macros and I'd eat like 6 meals a day. We were going to the gym, but I still was like, I still didn't have it figured out because I think at that point I was under eating during the day. And then I say I would binge at night, but I feel like that takes away from people who had a binge eating disorder because again, it was that I would smoke weed at night, I under ate all day, and then I would like binge, but like binging to me would be like letting myself have a bowl of oatmeal or like letting
Mhm.
myself have like a Greek yogurt bowl that like wasn't on my meal plan. You know what I mean? But I think
Yeah.
it was a little bit of just under eating during the day, overeating at night, that blood sugar instability that I always never really looked as good as I thought I should look for the amount of effort that I was putting in, especially in the gym.
Mhm.
And I can't remember like symptom wise. I think for sure I was probably bloated and diarrhea because I don't really remember ever having like good shits like ever. I think I always had diarrhea and I think I was always just bloated. And then fat loss just didn't really, it didn't happen easy for me
Yeah.
during that time. And I remember even when I hired my first coach, like he had to really put me on low calories for my body to respond to weight loss. But then I hired that coach. And then I think that kind of, I did get like abs for the first time. And I finally like looked like how I thought I wanted to look. And then I was like, okay, I can follow a meal plan and I can do my workouts. Like I'm going to do a prep. And then, yeah, I started prepping. And when I moved to Alberta from university, that's actually when my autoimmune
Hmm.
arose. And so it's like, people just think, oh, I just got an autoimmune disease. But it's like, no, that was my whole entire 24 years of life slowly manifesting until it got so bad that it turned into an autoimmune disease. Like, you don't just wake up one day with an autoimmune disease, that your body was giving you red flags. And everyone is different, I shouldn't say, because I don't think everyone it takes 24 years. But it's like, that is not just something that happens out of nowhere for most people. There are things you've probably missed or you just didn't know better, right? Which is like my story. I didn't know any better or know that those things. Like I was too scared to even tell my mom I had a yeast infection. Like I
Yeah.
wasn't. So I'm like, I just everything was fine. Everything was fine.
Well, and, like, what healthy was, like we said earlier, was so different, right? So it's like we're eating no
Yeah.
protein and all of those things just compound.
Well, and it's even funny because I think that played a big role in like me binging in university because again, I grew up in a small town. And even at that point, my mom and even my dad, we were like out of our friends, we were like the healthy house. Like no one liked to come to our house because we didn't have good snacks or pop or anything like that. And our treats were like a Fig Newton bar or like again, we never got like Fruit Loops, but our cereal would be like plain Cheerios. So it's not like health of what we know now, but it was back then like we were
Mhm.
that child. But I think having that, I remember even going to my friend's house at lunchtime and I would eat her lunch and then I would like drink like so much of her iced tea and like slam it back. So that, like I didn't have really any control because it's almost like you couldn't have it. So I wanted it, right?
Yeah.
Even though, yeah. And so I think that kind of once I moved down island to a bigger city, I got like $40,000 student loan in the bank. I'm like going to McDonald's, getting all my candy, like, which is just like, again, funny. But yeah, no, during those years, I don't really remember symptoms. It was probably just bloating, diarrhea, and then, yeah, my psoriasis was not good. And then always just a little bit of weight loss resistance, always had to work really, really hard to get lean and
Yeah.
lose weight. And then I can't remember when I fully lost my period, but it was right around when I was starting to get into bodybuilding and probably kind of was going into my first show, but I eventually lost my period completely and didn't get it for 3 consecutive years. So, went on birth control at 14, went off birth control at 20, had my period every 4 years or 4 months for about 7 years, and then at that 7-year mark, I lost it for 3 consecutive years. And again, I didn't mind because one, I couldn't get pregnant. So there I was having sex. And I didn't have to go through these debilitating cramps and it was like totally fine. But I remember my mom even saying, like, Lacey, you need to get your period. Like, and I remember she told me it was like something about my bones that, like, when you ovulate, like that rise in progesterone applies to like your bone health or something. And she was just like, you're going to like
Yeah.
break bones when you're older. Like, you need to figure this out and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't listen because I was jacked and lean and had a six pack. And I was like, whatever, mom, it's not that important. But it did kind of like instill this little seed in my
Thought.
mind that like, oh, so the only point of having your period is just not to get pregnant. There's like other reasons that we have this thing every month. And so I continued on my bodybuilding journey. My last and final prep, I had to diet on 800 calories a day, and I had to do 1,100 calories of cardio burned every day,
Which is like 2 hours on the stair climber.
which was like 2 hours of intense. So just fighting my fucking body tooth and nail, like couldn't take a hint that maybe I shouldn't be doing this sport, but that's just how like competitive and like focused I was. And
But you also had so much muscle and like you looked good and you're getting so much reward from everyone around you being like, you're so fucking jacked. And like everyone, that's 2 hours of stair climber. Plus she's also like lifting weights in the gym for probably like, you were probably spending what, 3.5 hours in the gym every day.
yeah, through those 7 years, I did 2-a-days every day. And when I tell people like I was team no days off, there's no exaggeration to that story. I probably took a year, maybe 10 days. I doubt it was even that though, off completely from the gym. Like I was so crazily obsessed. I'd go in the morning,
ADHD.
I do my cardio, and I was also just like toxic men. Like I wonder how I actually was mentally, right? Because I look back and I'm like, was I actually like depressed in a lot of these moments? But I just had like, it was my only thing, to be completely honest. I didn't have a career. I never was in like a good, healthy relationship, even without those 7 years. It was like on and off again with this guy that always cheated on me, and on and off again with this guy that always cheated on me. And like, it was just such a toxic part that I think it was like that sense of control over that physical aspect of my life, because I had no control over my mental health. I had no control over my career. I had no control over my love life. And so I was just like so obsessively hyper focused on being as shredded that like you'll hear stories of bodybuilders like cheating on their diet or like binging, or I, for those 7 years, weighed absolutely everything that went into my body down to like the piece of spinach on my thing. Like if it was not on my scale, I was not eating it. I never cheated. I never binged. I was so fucking dialed. I think if anything in my off season, I would undereat because I was scared of gaining weight. But it was just like I needed such a sense of control because I lacked control in so many other areas of my life, that I think is why I was like so hyper
That's a bodybuilding
focused
thing. It's crazy. Like every single person that's like in it, I'm like, it's control. That's what it was for me. You like talk to these people, it's like, okay,
yeah,
do you need
like,
control? Maybe. Are you lacking control a little bit?
Like, a little bit. Like it's just,
oh, that's wild thinking back to you, like that version of you.
And even on top of that, I was a server. So I was getting 10, 15,000 steps every single day on top of 2 hours of car. Like it was just crazy how much I was just fighting my body tooth and nail. And then I kind of told this story on my story yesterday, and this is what really remembered it. But it was like COVID was really like the thing that shifted everything for me, because COVID happened and everything shut down. And I also decided to move back to BC. And that was the first time where I don't even think I've ever said this on the podcast, but I chose not to get the vaccine, the COVID vaccine. And so and in BC, we couldn't go to the gyms for 2 years. We couldn't go to restaurants. So it was like, you have this opportunity, Lacey, and you have to remember, you guys too, that I was an online coach already at this point in my journey. And so kind of understanding, I decided to quit bodybuilding. I started my online business, and I was like this girl. I wanted to help women get like jacked and strong. And that was kind of like my ideal client. And I'm like this jacked and strong girl. And I've been jacked and strong for 7 years on Instagram, and everyone knew me as this like jacked and strong girl. And then all of a sudden I was like, I need to get my period back. But it took me just a year of putting through my own clients through reverse diets and understanding like, this works and you can do it, and and you might gain weight. But I was just like so fucking terrified of gaining weight that it did take me like a year of knowing what I needed to do to get my period back and like not being able to do it. And it wasn't until COVID and everything shut down and I moved provinces where now no one knows me in the gym. I can't even go to the gym. I can kind of like hide myself in my garage workouts.
Mhm.
I can like, post old pictures on my Instagram, which is what I did. And I committed. And for like the next 6 months, I reversed up. I gained 20 pounds and I got my period back, which was like amazing. And that's when I was 29 years old and I had my period for my first time regular in my life. So that was like a huge thing for me. But it was also at the time where I was so inflamed, I was so puffy, I was still bloated, I had diarrhea, my autoimmune disease was like at its worst it's ever been. And I was just like, I'm like, great, now I have all my symptoms and I'm fat, but at least I get my super painful period once a month. Like, I'm like, fuck. So I'm like, this is
Yeah.
awesome. And so, and it was just
Wait,
that.
before
And like,
you like, were you feeling like at the time, like, was it one of those things like you could tell you were over the weight that you wanted to be and you didn't feel good and you like felt inflamed? Because thinking back, like you would never say that, like, because we were
oh no,
working together at that time. You would never like admit, like, I feel like shit. You know what I mean? So,
no,
like,
and I hit it, and that's why it's like now I wish I took more pictures, but I was never someone that like took pictures of my bloated belly or like even I'm definitely the type of girl that like avoids mirrors. I don't like obsess over my flaws. I like avoid the mirror. I'm one of them.
avoid the flaws.
And even looking back, like all my videos, I have super filtered on. I never took pictures. I used all old pictures on my Instagram. Like if you look back, it's all like old pictures from when I still lived in Edmonton during that phase. And I remember I felt like shit, and I remember I kind of felt inflamed, and I remember thinking like I still have all these symptoms, and then the weight wouldn't come off, and it was because all I knew at that point was bodybuilder. And so when I doubled my calories, or not doubled, I think I went from eating like 16 or 1700 calories to like 23 or 24, increased my calories. I just, I was eating like that much more Greek yogurt and that much more. And I would
Right.
still like have all these bodybuilding things of like, well, you can't have real syrup. You have to have Walden Farm syrup. So I was just eating all of these like highly processed, low calorie foods, but way more of them, that I
Mhm.
think it kind of started this even more like inner turmoil where I was like, yeah, I got my period back because that's energy is required for that first and foremost, which is calories. But the rest of my health just started getting worse and worse and worse because I was just adding to like the fire of the inflammation and everything like
Yeah.
that. And so I think how funny is it that I was like, I'm not going to tell my whole story and just rattle through it and go really fast. Here I am 1 hour in. Almost done, you guys.
But no, this is how long mine and Kira's were. I feel like it takes a long time, and then this is what I like is going down these rabbit holes because it is
Yeah.
interesting. Like I think back to that time and like I just remember being in Kelowna because he posted that photo of us in Kelowna at Brooke's
Yes.
dad's place. I'm like, I don't ever remember looking at you and thinking like, wow, she does not look like herself. She looks like not like herself, super inflamed. I look back at photos that you post and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, we would never talk about it. I have this like core memory of me and you being in a parking lot. You must have come to Edmonton and you being like, yeah, like, I got to get my period back. I don't get a period. And I was like, oh, how are you going to do that? And you're like, I eat more, I guess.
That's so funny.
I know. So it's just funny because like at the time where you're like aware of it, but you're not like, you don't know. We didn't know at the time there was a way to get out of it. You know what I mean? So it's just like, which leads you
Yeah.
into your next journey, which was raw vegan.
The raw vegan. And just a quick pause here because I have that sales call in 6 minutes. So I might just like really just go quickly through this. But I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
People have heard my functional health story enough. So I'll go quick
Okay.
and try to wrap it up in 6 minutes. So yeah, at that point, I was kind of just at my wit's end. So like I said, I was just fat and all my symptoms were there. My autoimmune disease was weird. And again, just like so grateful for my mom for being like a slightly ahead of the curve because she also had autoimmune diseases and she also understood that like you can get to the root of it. And she was trying out her different things and she was on this raw vegan diet, and she like lost 20 pounds, and it was like she like her whole life, you know, she wanted to lose those last 20 pounds. And so she like went on this diet. It was raw vegan, and there's this big Facebook community with like 80,000 people, and everyone were like, it cured my lupus, it cured my autoimmune disease, it cured everything. And then my mom goes on it and she drops 20 pounds. And that's all I cared about, really, like at that point. But I was like, well, I'll try this because it's one, it's good for my autoimmune disease. And two, I probably am going to lose weight like really quickly. So, like, this is awesome, which I did. Dropped inflammation like crazy. And I think looking back,
Yeah.
because I remember counting my calories, it was only inflammation that I lost, because calorie wise, I was eating about 2,200 on this like raw vegan diet. And it was a protocol that you had to follow. So it wasn't just like eat raw vegan. It was like you have to eat 1.5 pounds of vegetables that were raw every single day. And then half a cup of chia seeds, half a cup of fruit, and unlimited avocado if you hit your other metrics. And so it was like a protocol meal plan thing that I did for 9 straight months. And then the first 2 months, I did drop like 15 pounds. And it was like just this crazy thing for me, because going back to my sense of control and my diligence, it was actually quite easy for me to follow a diet that I could have unlimited amount of food. I just have to like stay within perimeters, versus back to my bodybuilding days where I would be starving. So it was very easy for me to follow. I didn't struggle with that. And we are going to kind of try to wrap this up now, because unfortunately I'm on a time crunch. So I think most people have heard my functional health journey, but I'm just going to rapid fire through this last part to kind of get everyone idea. But went raw vegan. My psoriasis did change for the very first time, but it didn't completely disappear. And I did kind of feel good. I was like, had zero inflammation, but I started getting really tired. I had no strength. And I kind of knew that this was not the answer for me. And I also didn't want to live the rest of my life where my mom was like, I'm raw vegan for life. She like totally just went on that journey for way longer than I did. But I went down multiple other rabbit holes. Like I went down the spiritual realm, where I was working with this bodywork girl who would do these like crazy intense massages on me to like work on my fascia. And then I did like plant medicine journeys, because I was like, am I holding on to like this childhood trauma? Like, what do I need to get rid of there? And did all of these crazy things, tried the carnivore diet, nothing changed. And then I was a business coach at the time, and I ended up mentoring a functional practitioner, and I just casually listed off my laundry list of symptoms, and she like nonchalantly just said to me like, oh, your psoriasis, oh yeah, bloating, oh yeah, that like, because I started developing tinea versicolor, which is like a yeast thing on my body too. She's like, oh yeah, that's all just gut issues, like we can fix you, like you just got to do a GI map and like this HTMA, and like 6 months you'll be good. And I was just like, what? Like, this is crazy. And I just was like, whatever you tell me to do. And that was kind of the change of everything, because up until that point, also, I had decided I should start running marathons. So I was like training for a marathon, and like, it was a whole another thing. But
That part.
I completely changed my lifestyle, and I went from working out twice a day, every single day, and running marathons to pretty much not going or moving my body at all. I like completely changed the way I ate, going from the ultra processed diet to a whole food diet. And now I like live the lifestyle that I still live today. And obviously that did heal me, and I'm on the end of it. And then I'm now on my next era, which is my fertility journey, which I'm kind of happy we didn't have time to talk about, because that's a whole nother fucking what's wrong with me? Like, and also just like reinstating that belief that I had for so many years of you can't get
Yeah.
pregnant, you can't get pregnant, you can't get pregnant, you can't get pregnant. And then for a long time I was like, I don't want to get pregnant. I don't want to. I don't want to be a mom. I've never had that like strong internal like maternal pull. And then all of a sudden I meet Zach, and we're like, we should probably be parents. Like, this makes sense. And
We're
then you
pretty
can't
good
get
at this.
pregnant, and you're like, and now I'm trying not to make that my identity as like, you're someone who can't get pregnant. And it's just been such a fucking mind fuck is the best way to put it. But anyways, that's it. Thanks for listening.
Oh, Lace. Well, first of all, it's going to come. We know that for a fact. But yeah, that is a crazy story.
I know.
I feel like that could have had a part 2, because, but the one thing I'll say is when we got, even when, once again, going through the last part of that journey with Lacey, when she worked with that practitioner, it was just amazing. And she said this before too. It finally was something that made sense. Like, she came to the Zoom calls and she's telling me what we're doing. I'm like, that's really cool. And that makes a lot of sense. Like, whereas the raw vegan, I was like, it's working for you. Don't even try.
Doesn't make sense though.
Doesn't make any sense, but it's working. So keep doing what you're doing. But it's just so cool that everything, obviously it could have happened a lot quicker, but you needed to go down that route to get to where you are.
Yeah. And
Now
I
we get to help
I
other
think
people.
yes, and I think if anyone gets anything from my story, it's reflect back on your childhood and is there any weird health thing? Because we know so many people, oh, well, even you, I get strep throat every once a year. I get like none of that is normal, right? And I
No.
think we just overlook those symptoms or those whispers from our body for years and years and years until all of a sudden, boom, you have an autoimmune disease or you get diagnosed with diabetes or cancer or whatever and you're like why me, why me, why me, and it's like well your body has been trying to tell you and you're either so dysregulated or distracted that you don't have time to like slow down and actually listen or even
Listen.
like pay attention and tune in to what your body is telling you day in and day out, that you just think it came out of nowhere but like nothing comes out of nowhere.
Nowhere.
So anyways, I really do have to go. So
Mic drop. Well, thanks for sharing your story, Lacey. That was amazing. I hope everyone got something from it. And if you did, share it on your story, share it with your friend, share it with everyone you know, and like, subscribe, ring the bell, all those good things.
peace punch, Captain Crunch. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to The Wellness Effect. We're so grateful to be part of your wellness journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on Instagram. We'll put all of our handles in the show notes. If you have questions or ideas, slide into our DMs or send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep creating your own wellness effect.